It's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care, so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision-making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In the last blog, I shared, rest in peace, Alfie Evans, what families in intensive care can learn from the Alfie Evans case. You can check out last week's blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to talk about why hope is not a strategy when it comes to life or death situations in intensive care. One of the things that strikes me daily when I talk to families of critically ill patients in intensive care is that they say things like, I really hope that my mum, dad, sister, brother, husband or wife, etc. is going to survive or is going to get better, and so on. Unfortunately, hope is not a strategy that will get you very far in intensive care, let alone that will get you results, because it's not a tangible strategy and it won't get you any results, period. The best results that families get when they have a loved one critically ill in intensive care is when they realize that they need help from a professional who's been there, done that, because you and your family are so far outside of your comfort zone that you are unable to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence. Particularly in the following situations, hope is not and can never be a strategy because the stakes are way too high. If your loved one is in the following difficult, challenging and often heartbreaking situations, and if they are, number one, very unstable and in a very critical condition. Number two, in a life-threatening situation. Number three, they don't wake up after an induced coma. Number four, they're in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays, including long-term ventilation. Number five, having a severe or traumatic head or brain injury. Number six, your loved one may be threatened with an NFR, not for resuscitation, or DNR, do not resuscitate order. Or your loved one might be in a situation where the intensive care team suggests that a quote-unquote withdrawal of treatment or a quote-unquote limitation of treatment might be quote-unquote in the best interest for your critically ill loved one. Or your loved one may in fact be approaching the end of life in intensive care. In those situations, you will need a much better strategy than hope. And I can't tell you how many families in intensive care come to us after their loved one has died and they say things like, well, if I had only known that such a consulting and advocacy service like IntensiveCareHotline.com existed. Or they say, I didn't know what to do, I didn't understand what was happening, and I didn't know how to manage the intensive care team until it was too late. Or they say things like, I was really just hoping for things to turn out well. There it is again, the H word. Hope can and must never be a strategy when it comes to critical illness in intensive care. What you will need are proven strategies that work and that can and will save your loved one's life, period. The strategy hope can literally kill. Hope mixed with proven strategies are a much better recipe for success. So how do I know? After nearly 20 years intensive care nursing experience in 3 different countries where I literally worked with thousands of critically ill patients and their families, and where I have also worked as a nurse unit manager for over 5 years, and with now consulting and advocating for families in intensive care one-on-one on a day-by-day basis here at IntensiveCareHotline.com. I know intensive care inside out. I understand the dynamics and the games intensive care teams play inside out, so that I can leverage that insider knowledge to successfully advocate for my clients here at IntensiveCareHotline.com and help them get the results that they want, need, and deserve for their critically ill loved one. I'll give you an example so you understand. Many families in intensive care come to us and they say things like, "The doctors told us they need to withdraw treatment tomorrow," literally pulling the plug on my dad because it wouldn't be, quote unquote, in his best interest to live. Or they say things like, "The doctors and the nurses are so negative, but we believe my mum can survive this because she's so resilient and has beaten the odds before." Or they say things like, "The doctors asked us to sign or agree to an NFR, not for resuscitation order, or a DNR, do not resuscitate order, because they don't want to, quote unquote, crack the ribs when doing CPR if my mum's or my dad's heart stops." So let's zoom out here for a moment and put things in perspective. What do all of the statements above have in common? Those statements do all have in common that families are literally dealing with life or death situations every day in intensive care, and they simply don't know what to do. Hope in situations like this won't simply cut it. It's as simple as that. Here is a quote that illustrates what will help you going forward. To live through an impossible situation, you don't need to have the reflexes of a Grand Prix driver, the muscles of a Hercules, the mind of an Einstein. You simply need to know what to do. This is from Anthony Greenback from the Book of Survival. And Anthony Greenback sums it up beautifully what to do when you are going through an impossible situation. It's quite simple. You simply need to know what to do. And having a loved one in intensive care is like literally an impossible situation. And the stakes are so high that hope as a strategy is simply doomed to fail. Because of that, we have helped hundreds of families in intensive care to get the outcomes that they want for their loved ones in ICU. And by doing so, we have saved lives, while overtly negative intensive care teams wanted to stop or withdraw life support and literally kill people. So how do we do that? We do that by understanding and analyzing your and your critically ill loved one's situation, and we do it by then implement strategies that are proven to work. Part of what we do is that we use our clinical intensive care knowledge and apply it to your loved one's situation. This includes talking to the doctors and the nurses with you and on your behalf. We participate in family meetings either in person or over the phone. We understand how negotiations work in intensive care, and we can talk on a clinical level to the intensive care team. Most families can't talk to the intensive care team on a clinical level and therefore fail to get the outcomes that they want, need and deserve for their loved ones. For example, we understand patients and family rights in intensive care, and we can use that insider knowledge to your and your loved one's advantage. You can also read case studies, or you can listen to our podcast where we have interviewed some of our clients. We also understand the clinical issues in intensive care, and we can make suggestions and recommendations for clinical treatment. 99% of families in intensive care have no idea about their rights, and therefore they are unable to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence. They just take everything for face value the intensive care team is telling them. Families of critically ill patients in intensive care also don't understand the things that are happening behind the scenes in intensive care. And quite frankly, if you fail to understand the things that are happening behind the scenes in intensive care, such as the politics, the dynamics, the hierarchy, and the conflicting and competing interests intensive care teams often have, you will literally be fighting an uphill battle. If you also fail to understand the clinical issues in intensive care, you will be unable to ask the right clinical questions, and therefore, again, you won't be able to challenge the intensive care team. Without you being able to ask the right questions to get to the right answers, you won't be able to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence. Remember, the biggest challenge for families in intensive care is that you simply don't know what you don't know. Therefore, hope as a strategy is simply doomed to fail. Instead of using hope as a strategy, learn from the experts and let me take you by the hand and walk you through how to get outcomes that really benefit you and your critically ill loved one. Death for your loved one can't be an outcome because the intensive care unit needs their ICU bed for another patient, and yet that's unfortunately what often happens. Without you being privy to this insider knowledge about intensive care, you'll be fighting a losing battle, period. So, how can you become the best advocate for your critically ill loved one? How can you make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You will get to that all-important feeling of making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you will learn quickly how to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision-making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you will learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle, and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You will get 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You will get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You will get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again next week in another update. Make sure you also have a look at our Your Questions Answered section, where I answer your questions, or simply send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Or you can call me, find the international phone numbers on the top of the website. Also, have a look at our membership site intensivecaresupport.org for families of critically ill patients in intensive care. Also, have a look at our ebook section where you get more ebooks, videos and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting and advocacy with me via Skype, over the phone and via email by clicking on the consulting tabs on the top of the website. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.